subcombinations. Oh crap, it's larger than that because it's going to be like a 18 factorial. I was just thinking it was like 18 to a lower power. Yeah, so the short form of that, I mean, math aside, is that it's very, very hard to test things thoroughly and properly, and so you often do need cheats to do that. You do need various mods to do that. And when you let users make stuff in the games, like user mods go in, being able to exhaustively test to make sure none of those can do anything that is harmful, is non-trivial too. And it's very easy to goof up on that kind of stuff. I've seen very, very smart people goof up and like, oh look, you can bring up a web page using a mod, and because of that, you can do something really obscure, and then you can bring up a bad web page or something you've hacked, or there's a lot figuring out all those edge cases. It's really non-trivial, and so are you responsible? Yes. Are the people making that kind of stuff responsible? At the end of the day, yes, one would hope so. Legally, can you hold them responsible? In some jurisdictions, no. I mean, someone hacks your stuff from China or someplace where you have a very hard time getting jurisdiction, then even pursuing that kind of stuff is a pain in the butt or impossible outright. So, feel free to re-ask the question. If I didn't get the gist of that question, because it could mean a few things, feel free to re-ask. I certainly don't mind doing that.
I had a question. I forgot what it was.
Usually I get, Mr. Gaffney, how do you remain so good looking and yet still maintain your modesty? Yeah, I know, I have a form letter for that. I get this a lot. So. Although I've realized now, I look down at the stream and like I'm reversed in that, so I've been like, why do I look so weird? And I look weird, A, because, hey, this is what I got to live with, and and B, it's, I've now realized that I'm seeing myself from a completely different angle. So that's interesting. It was kind of freaking me out before, and now I understand what's going on.
Now that Twitch is around, and you can stream games, do you think that influences what becomes popular?
Oh, God, yes.
And what doesn't?
Yes. So here's a couple of things on that. I was talking to some of the folks over at Twitch, some of the higher level guys at Twitch, and they're like, dude, Roblox is so cool. I'm like, well, what the heck's Roblox? Roblox. I'm like, I have no idea. I'm like, well, it's a game, it's kind of a Minecraft-y game where you can build other games in it. And they did something very clever, which is they had their online team go and they have a thing where there's an in-game currency you use to build stuff in the game. One of the ways you can build that currency is by streaming. And their online team would go look at who was streaming and how many streamers they had, and they'd be like, hey, cool, you got 5 extra viewers or 100 viewers, here you go, here's in-game currency to go build more stuff. And so they went from like 0 streamers to 3,200 streamers over the course of about 2 weeks when they first started doing that. And the game became really, really popular amongst a younger sort of Twitch demo. And being not necessarily the kind of game that would really have taken off for that kind of stuff. It did it in part because it fed its own virality, I guess, through being very twitchable and then incenting people to Twitch. And so as game companies get clever, you're going to see more and more of that stuff. Twitch just announced a Stream First initiative where they want developers to, think about streaming as being a fundamental part of the gameplay experience from an early stage. And personally, I think that kind of stuff is really interesting. I think it's Twitch in many ways. Everyone thinks VR is like the hot new platform. In some ways, Twitch is kind of the hot new platform. And it's going to get old at some point when you have lots of interaction where, streamers can influence stuff that are happening in the game you're playing, or they can, like if it was Hunger Games, send you care packages inside the game. You're going to see that kind of stuff more and more, I think, in the next year or two. And there will be a blowback against that eventually because it'll be annoying, to have that happening all the damn time. But I think there's a lot of fun games can get made with that. So I'm really interested to see what happens with the next year or two of that kind of stuff happening. But absolutely, it's a case that stuff feeds on itself. We were talking, you and I were talking before about something I saw at E3 with where one of the our PR team wanted really to focus on print magazine stuff. Print magazine, I'm like, print magazine, it's like 75,000 subscribers. Like, we should be doing online sites, Kotaku, like big gaming sites. They get like 1 million views on their articles. And and then streamers are walking up and getting turned away by the PR guys because they didn't realize the value of them when, in actuality, Jesse Cox, just done a review of Elder Scrolls that had 3.5 million views. And it's like, and he got turned away from our booth. I saw him and snagged him like, hey, here, show up, check out our stuff. But and he did it, and we got it. I haven't looked at the video, but from my recollection, got a couple million views on it from the little preview thing he did. It's like that stuff matters, and right now, I think we're in a little bit of a golden age of that because there hasn't been a ton of blowback where the companies really realize it and throw too much money around. I mean, you're starting to see a lot of that. It's not like PewDiePie hasn't, made a crap ton of money, for pimping that kind of stuff. But it's not overwhelmed with like everyone realizing they ought to be doing that more than TV ads and stuff. You got to think everyone's going to realize that next year or two. I mean, it's too big not to. It's just because everyone kids are doing it instead of like the execs are doing it. You know what I mean? Like how many 45-year-old execs do you think are out there? Well, okay, I've been an exec and I'm 45, and I have to admit I watch a couple hours of streamers and or YouTubers every day. But having said that, I mean, really, how common is that in our industry right now? It's not. And so because of that, you're going to see more and more and more of that happening over the next 1 year, 5 years, 10 years, to where it really becomes ubiquitous. So killer question, but like, no, this is like the hot new thing is exactly what you're doing right now is this is a wave in the middle of happening.
Another question would be, do you
to answer this question, right? PewDiePie is
yeah.
If you look on YouTube, he is the #1 single highest subscriber count on YouTube. He has 43, from recollection, million subscribers. So every video he does has 6 or 7 million views. And he does gamers. He appeals mostly to like 14 to 20-year-olds. And he's cute, and so especially like the girls love him. And so if you have teenage daughters, you will absolutely know who he is. Or other various demos that might be interested in him. But personally, as an older guy, he like screams a lot and he bro fists. And and he has lots of reaction videos, lots of and over the top reactions, and I personally find it very, very painful to watch, but I respect it because it is like a thing in gaming. Like I better get that and not be like an old curmudgeon on that front. But he definitely appeals to a certain crowd, and if you're not in that crowd, you're going to think it's freaking ridiculous, and if you're in that crowd, you think it's freaking awesome. Or at least 43 million people think it's freaking awesome.
Do you think game companies don't test their games to the degree that they used to because of deadlines? I guess like when Assassin's Creed came out and there was that huge blowback because it was so buggy. There was just like holes in the walls. You could fall through the floors. It was like ridiculous.
I can't speak for every game. And that's in a very special case. I mean, that's the case of those are big-ass games. There's lots of content, and they'd figure out the pipelines enough where they're able to make them very rapidly. One a year of that size of game is redonkulous. No one had ever done that before. I couldn't even tell you something that was kind of close to that. And so they may exist, and I just don't know it. And so I'm not surprised that some cracks up. I'm not surprised they're taking a year or two now to like sort of jigger the pipeline. In some ways, that's great because, I mean, making high-quality games that fast is killer. In some ways, it's bad because they, are you going to milk the hell out of a franchise and kill it by, overexposing it or lowering your quality bar too much? That's a real risk, and that you can kill good franchises by doing that. And so I don't know where they'll end up falling on that front, but I respect them for actually trying it because, again, that's hard and no one had ever really done it before. And so they took a really good shot at making that happen. I was amazed how frequently those games came out, and again, with the size of them and with the quality. Not that they haven't had issues with frame rate, and they haven't had issues with debugging and all that. So I think the lack of QA that you see in their case, may well be deadline related. In general, though, I mean, games are just harder to QA most of the time now, and the reason I mean that is that they're bigger, they're more technically complex. They're in 3D, which there's a whole class of stuff that's pretty easy to check in 2D or text that in 3D, let's suppose that, and they're large. Large has two problems. Problem number one is there's a lot to put in. Two is things tend to have, even if you are, usually designs there's very little combinatorial things that happen in your game. By combinatorial, I mean, if you look at if you happen to know Binding Isaac does a brilliant job of, you fire a single projectile, and then you get a thing that splits it into two, and then there's two, and then you get another one that makes them orbit around you, and now you have two things orbiting around you, and now you get another thing which makes them explode into firebombs, and now they explode into firebombs. That's very complex to code, it's super complex to test because if you have 100 items, there's 100 combos. It's if you have 2 items, it's 100 times 99, versions of those, so 9,900 different combinations. If your character can pick up 2 items, if you can pick up 20 or 40, the numbers get staggering. And so just testing all those combos is quite hard, and it requires you to be quite clever to do it. And that's in a simple game made by a few people that was done in like Flash. And so most of the time, you design your game to not have those kind of complex interactions. They're very compelling to consumers. You know what I mean? It's neat having that kind of element in the game, makes it very replayable. But often you limit yourself intentionally to have fewer things that you can check. But how do you check that stuff in 3D? Especially when any one thing you add means you need to recheck everything else that was already in the game against it. When we launched WildStar, we had 600-ish hours of content, probably. I mean, probably more in some ways. I mean, if you were going to play PvP, you're going to do arena PvP, you're going to do dueling, and you're going to do war plots, 40v40 PvP. And if you go into dungeons, there's a whole slew of solo dungeons. There's a slew of group dungeons. Group dungeon testing is very hard because you need to test every combination of classes and every combination of skill level and every combination of like where can you stand on the wall, and it turns out the creatures can't path there. Then you have raids, which are 20-man or 40-man. And now you have the solo content, the big open world. And now there's a couple hundred hours of just consuming that. And so if you have QA people testing all that, how do they even legitimately test that without cheating, cracking the stuff we were talking about before? It's almost impossible. And then now you change something. Let's suppose you changed how your damage formula worked. You now need to test every single piece of that again. And just testing it once is probably a month for like our 100 QA testers that are offsite, our 40 that are inside our publisher, our 20 that are inside our own office. And so your ability to have bugs at that kind of scale, it's high. It's high, especially because your QA people are not going to be of the skill level of people going in who really love that genre. They're getting paid to play. That doesn't mean they're kick-ass raiders. You're stoked if you have a couple people who are kick-ass raiders who happen to be on your QA staff. And so, so the scope of games has made that really tricky as well. The fact they're in 3D has made it tricky as well. But it's also not an excuse. I'm not doing, hey, let's go, it's a buggy mess. No, you have to frickin' do what it takes to get it good. You need to automate it where you can automate it. You need to have your designs be, in areas you want to have as much coolness, complexity in the design as possible, but also have it, have as little likelihood to screw up as possible. That means discipline on program. It means discipline on design. And so, and I respect the heck out of games that come out with very, very low bug counts. Again, sorry for the long answer. I probably short answers to something. The anecdote I talked about the you were chatting earlier about ArenaNet. That was a grand example of the. I probably reviewed 200 or 300 different games when heading up product development for NCSoft, and theirs really stood out. And of those we chose 10, and of those 6 succeeded. The ArenaNet was interesting with Guild Wars. Their very early version of Guild Wars was cool. It looked good. It played well. It was fun. It was like, you could kill stuff. And also it was miraculously, for like the couple hours slice of gameplay they had, it was like bug free. I played it for a couple hours and then finally saw one bug in it where there was an NPC that was like bumping up against the fence instead of giving me my damn quest return. And I was impressed, honestly, because your average prototype you see, you think games launch buggy, like prototypes, man, you're happy if they don't just crash when you run them. In this case, like they give me the flash drive, I plugged in the 1 meg executable, I ran it, smoothly downloaded, smoothly gameplay, went hour and a half, no bugs visible. So I saw one bug, I was like, woohoo, a bug. I'm like, good, I'll give them crap about it. I file a little bug report. And like while I'm still in the game, their CEO, Mike O'Brien, who's still at Arena in Bellevue, he texted me like, holy crap, a bug? We don't have bugs. Oh, wait, crap, you're right. And so, hold on. And while I was logged on, they brought down the servers, they fixed the bug, they brought the servers back up, and the NPC went boop and gave me my little quest reward. And I was like, and it seamlessly, I was like, these guys are disciplined. These guys are pro-level developers who get disciplined at a deep level. But that's not common every team. Even really good teams may or may not have that level of build and programming discipline. Even on top-notch teams, even on teams that are, have made, world-famous games that have made billions of dollars, like, you can see some fundamental lack of discipline on that kind of stuff because it's hard. It's hard keeping that discipline. But there's a reason, but even then, it's not like Guild Wars. I'm sure did not much bug-free. has any game ever launched bug free? But that's kind of as long as it takes even just to get the damn thing out.